Excuse me. This is PhantomElectricGhost, and we're live on our YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook channels. In this episode, we're going to talk about expansive sound and our hardware production with our Moogs and all of our analog synths and some of our gear. So we've got this video we're going to run talking about how we patched up our Moog Grandmother and our DFAM and our Mother 32. And then we got some videos of some of the process that we come up with to do these songs. So one of the songs that we're going to bring up is an interesting song we put together a couple days ago. We created a video for it, and pretty excited about the stuff we were able to come up with here. We do some very interesting things with our music in terms of how we put together the videos. So we got some videos that we're going to be pulling up, and we're not ready to do that one yet. But right now we're going to show the video of our process, and then we'll talk more about some of the other things. But the first thing we'll talk about is streaming is Newsly.me, and they're an iOS app, and they're also, you can get them from the Amazon store, so you can stop scrolling and start listening, because it reads back the news to you in a natural voice. So use coupon code GHOST2021 to get 1 month free premium subscription. Again, that's Newsly.me, or go to the App Store or the Android store and download, use GHOST2021. That still works, and get 1 month free premium subscription. And then the other thing we do is we work with DoubleJack.Online. DoubleJack.Online is a philanthropic online lottery based out of Europe, and they also have some other things that you can check out. So if you take your smartphone right now and scan that scan code, you can get the DoubleJack.Online. You can be an influencer. They do NFTs, which is kind of Bitcoin blockchain type of art that you can do. They can create a link like you see the one below for DoubleJack.Online /PhantomElectricGhost. So if you're a band, you can create a link for you and have your band name or artist name, and then they create that scan code, and you can use that to get side income, because every time somebody goes and plays like Keno or Euro Lottery or Powerball, you get a percentage of those profits. If somebody else signs up with your code, you get a percentage. If they go and do NFTs, you get some money for that. If you then do crowdfunding to support a project, like you want to put together an album, you want to support a tour, you want to put together, they can help you do that. So just check it out. Use my scan code, or if you don't feel comfortable with scan code, use DoubleJack.Online /PhantomElectricGhost and check that out. So we've got all of our sponsors been identified. So we're going to get back into what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the hardware workflow with the Moog, how we can patch up a grandmother. So here we go. Analog programming that we're doing with the Moog Grandmother, and we're also doing with our Moog DFAM. You see here, and then I'm showing the Mother 32 with the help from the math module from Make Noise. So what we've got going on here is we've been doing some heavy analog jamming that's kind of 9 Inch Nails inspired, heavy kind of punk dissonance. And one of the things we like doing is we've got our Moog Grandmother wired up to engage the utilities. And what we're doing in this particular mod is we're engaging the mod wheel to do kind of like a classic waveform thing, where we're using this waveform along with this waveform, and we're using oscillator sync, but then we kind of transfer between going with it and going not with it. So when we use oscillator sync in this mode that you see here all wired up, we get kind of like a classic kind of Emerson, Lake and Palmer lead sound. But when we take the modulation wheel and we bring it down, and then we turn off the oscillator sync, with this particular patch, we get a very guttural, punk, very distorted sound that's not as musical as when we have the oscillator sync on and we have the modulation wheel turned up. And what we've got going on is we're using the LFO, but we don't have it wired. We're using a normal path on it. But also what we're doing is we're taking the wave out from oscillator 2 and we're following that. So if we take oscillator 2 wave out, we bring it into utilities so we can share it. So once it's in the utilities, we're actually taking it and bringing it into the filter, which is the famous 4-pole filter. And then we've also got that signal that we're bringing from oscillator 2, and we're using the mult to bring it into the high pass filter. So we brought it into the high pass filter, and then we're taking the results of the high pass filter and putting it into the plus envelope out. And then it's interesting on this thing, you got a slider on the sustain. And then in addition, we're also using an attenuator to take the signal output from the mixer, the CP3 mixer. So we take the output from the CP3 mixer and we're putting it into the attenuverter. And in the attenuverter, you can go negative, which we're doing in this particular patch. So when we use that negative and we don't have the oscillator sync on, we get this really guttural patch. And then we got the output of the attenuverter going into the input on the CP3 filter. So it's kind of complicated, and we kind of found this kind of by trial and error. We got not that much spring reverb dialed in. In a lot of cases, we actually got the VCA mode to the envelope generator. We got the envelope amount like maxed out. And again, we're using for the filter, we've got it on 1, 2 on the KBD track. And the CP3 mixer, we only have it the cutoff at this level. But what's going on is it makes a really interesting sound that we can kind of bounce back and forth between engaging the oscillator sync, which you can tell is on because it's really bright, and then engaging the mod filter, the mod that actually turns on the ability to pull in the rate off the LFO. So then that comes in, or it doesn't come in. And it allows you, when you're playing, to kind of be like if on an organ, like have the drawbars. All these things are things that you can manipulate. If you see us play, a lot of times we'll engage the sync and not engage it. We'll play with the frequency on the oscillator sync. We'll play with this with the cutoff. We'll play with the attenuverter. We play pretty much with everything. And then the sustain, you can get a lot of different effects on it. And then we play with the spring reverb. And then over here, what we've got engaged is on this patch is we're using the kick bass snare, but we don't have exactly what it says, because you see on this particular patch, I'm not actually following it. There's a lot of places where I'm not following it. On the wiring, even I'm not following it. I'm taking a lot of the output and I'm bringing it into the maths module. So I'm also taking a Mother 32 and bringing it into the maths module, and then I'm engaging the cycle, which basically acts like an envelope. Let me turn it on, but you can see that turned on, and I'm engaging the cycle on this thing, where I'm taking in a Mother 32 feed and I'm taking in a DFAM feed. And at the end of the day, what it gets to is it alters the sound of the DFAM. I can alter how the DFAM sounds by playing with the logarithmic or exponential control here. I've got it on, both on the rise and fall, either engaging the cycle or not engaging it. And I can bring in, there's a lot of stuff you can read on this thing. And a lot of it is trial and error, and we're playing with different profiles here. We're using like an inverse and the DS and the D and C on it, the DC. Well, it's the OR. but basically, we're engaging different things you can engage, and each one of these inputs on the CB gets you a different result. And so a lot of what we do is trial and error. But over time, we've kind of gotten this kind of really grungy sounding, interesting sounding, kind of Trent Reznor-esque, very aggressive synth sound. And we really like that aggressive synth sound. Is the combination of using this Grandmother, and then one of the other secret sauce things that we've been able to do is be able to use this new thing we got here, which we talked about before, which is a DI box. So this is the Behringer DI box. You can see it here. And what we're able to do is take the headphone out of this Grandmother, and basically a lot of Moog instruments, when you output the 1/4 inch, it's actually a headphone output. Same thing's going out on this thing. It's a headphone output coming out of, well, this is coming from an Arturia Mini-Brew 2S, but it's kind of like the same thing. So both of these outputs are going into the DI box, and then coming out as, they're coming in as 1/4 inch and going out as XLR. And the reason we're doing that, you jump over to our recording solution, and we don't have SD card in it. But what we've been able to do is we've been able to basically bring in an XLR that was converted from 1/4 inch and actually, you know, have it on its own track. So that's what's going on the R20, is I can bring in the DFAM, the Mother 32, and then the Grandmother's on its own track. So what's cool on this thing is just like the L20 series, the R20, each line coming in, if it's a stereo pair, it gets like one stem. But these two here are just mono, so they're coming in mono and getting their own track, or what you could, a stem at their own stem that will come onto the grid. And that allows us to play with the levels on it, so I can adjust it after the fact, and I can actually move tracks around on this grid once I have them in here. So that gives us a lot of power. And then for our vocal processing, we're using the Soyuz launcher, which is very great at using my own voice, where I don't use my vocoder. My vocoder I normally use is the VT3. And a lot of times for the Josephine vocal, you'll see it's pitched up, and we use like 4-mount. And a lot of times I'll actually have it on just a direct on here. And that's what I'll do. But sometimes I run the pitch. I do use the megaphone a lot and the scatter. I don't use the bass and the lead that much, or the synth, but or the vocoder, unless I got it attached to like my Juno. But we're going to show you we're actually going to listen to a song we did last night using how I wired this up. And a lot of times with these things, you know, you kind of run into a happy accident with the wiring. We've kept this wiring for the last like 3-4 songs because we really dig what it is. We usually have to take a picture of our CV setup in order to maintain it, because once you unhook it, you know, one day we'll say, well, you know, we got to start all over again. And then we do. And that's the nature of doing this kind of recording. So we'll just leave it here, and we're going to actually play some SoundCloud songs, because we've had some issues with people not really being able to hear what we did here unless we actually put it on SoundCloud or Spotify. And we, in this podcast, want to actually use SoundCloud in this particular episode, because we just showed the video setup here, and then we're going to play the audio with SoundCloud. So we're back, and that was our discussion of how we use our hardware workflow. And we just wanted to kind of get into that to kind of show you what all those wires look like. Now the next song we're going to bring up, we've got a couple songs, and I just want to see which one it is. I want to add this one to the stream. Yeah, let's see which one it is. That's the longer one. I don't want that one. So what I want to do, we have the song here.
Now be dog, dog celebrate. We go slave.
Yeah, hold on.
I wanna be dog.
He's gonna rewind.
Get my foot dominate.
Yeah, stop. So we got this song we did with that kind of workflow that you're gonna recognize the kind of Trent Reznor, Nine Inch Nails nature, and Make Noise is kind of famous. A lot of some of Trent Reznor's members of his band utilize a lot of their products, and a lot of their workflow, like the mass module, has been heavily used by bands like Nine Inch Nails and a lot of other electronic bands. And anybody who gets a Eurorack will soon find out not only do they need mults so they can double and triple and quadruple signals, they need a central processor that allows them to kind of put things together. So I mean, I've got like a Pittsburgh modular 2x2 mixer that takes VCA signals, but the mass module, what's brilliant about that, it allows you to do like additional oscillators, additional LFOs, and additional envelopes, and then basically control your signals and rework your signals. So especially with the DFAM, one of the limitations, which is fantastic, is it's only 8 steps. So a lot of people will get like 2-3 DFAMs and like put them on top of each other. Or you have to use additional methods of sequencing it, like using the Grandmother's sequencer, which is 256 steps, where you can then increase the complexity of the beat. Or you run it through a different sequencer, but it's EV, so then you've got to get some kind of MIDI conversion to do that. Or connect it to a Grandmother, and there's a way to do it through the way the Grandmother can control it. And then anything else that has that kind of sequencer you can control. But using LFOs and envelopes and oscillators is another way to control the DFAM. And then that's where the Make Noise math comes in, and then you can hear what it's going to sound like here. So we're going to play the next track right now.
I'll be a dog, dog color babe. You got such elegant grace, St. Petersburg, babe. Sophie, be my upper dominant babe. I'll be your slave. At the rave, I'll be your slave. I wanna be a dog, colored babe. At the rave, I'll be your slave. At the rave, I'll be your dog, colored slave. You be my dog for dominant babe. At the rave, you'll be your dog-colored slave. At the rave, you'll be my alpha dominant babe. At the rave, I'll be your dog-colored babe. You be my alpha dominant babe. my dog-colored babe. At the rave, you be my dark-colored babe. And my alpha dominance. At the rave, you be my dark-colored babe. The alpha dominant way. At the rave, you be my dog-colored babe. My alpha dominant game. We do it dives and do it for the change. The fact of the grace. Darling, do whatever you want. Put it in my face. You're gonna feel the ocean's great big wave when you put it in my face. You like to play the upper dominant, babe. I like to play the dog-colored slave. We like to do it every which way. At the rave, you be my alpha dominant, babe. Need your dog-colored slave. You be my doggone babe. Let the rave be my dominance. The rave do it every which way. You put the ocean wave in my face. You get the surge and that's no good. And when you put it in my face. Be my dog for dominant, babe. At the rave, you put the ocean spray in my face. It was so much good. We put it in each other's face and die from the rave. We put it in each other's face, 69, so much grave. My alpha, the dominant babe. The ocean's crazy. When the dog caught the tail, so you can make the hate fade, babe. you put it in his face and hit her in the best way. So much good when you put it in his or her face. You're gonna feel that ocean spray. So much quick when you put it in his or her face. The alpha dominant babes. You do it in the bathroom of the rave. And there's so much faith. You do it in the bathroom with alpha dominant babe. Alpha dominant babe. You know there's no trace of fade. It's all hate, babe, babe. Oh, hey, baby, good, you hit her face.
So that was the latest track that we put together, and that was kind of using the workflow we talked about earlier with the Grandmother. And also with the DFAM being modified by Make Noise Maths module. And so what we had also do is we like to do live streaming, and we've got a stream that we set up, and we're gonna see if we can get that up. That's the last thing we're gonna run tonight, or tonight for people who are watching us in other places, to kind of show off what we were talking about earlier with our analog synths being directly recorded by the Zoom R20 and using a DI box from Behringer to take those signals from the Moogs, which tend to be headphone signals, and make them available for recording into XLR, which is what the new standard for most of the inputs on the R20. There's only like 2/4 inch inputs. So let's see if we can get this up. We've got the next item here, and basically this is a live stream that we did. We used the Zoom we used the two different camera solutions. We're using the Camo app that actually turns our iPhone into a webcam, and then StreamYard allows you to take in a second webcam. And what's cool is because it's an iPhone, it actually has a very high quality video. And then the other solutions, we use a Zoom Q8 camera, and so StreamYard allows you to have multiple cameras now. You can have a second camera, and that's what Camo is coming in as a separate camera. You can also use OBS, and then you can have even more cameras. So if you use OBS, you could have Camo coming into OBS. You could have a Q8. You could have, and maybe like two other cameras. I think you could even have more, but use how many you want to fit on the screen. So here we have a 2-camera shot, not using any kind of video editor to kind of bounce around the shots or anything, but this is an example of us playing, and we're gonna play that right now. So hopefully this will come out right. So let's get into it.
Even though she's done years old, and when you touch it, it's so gold. No matter how many substances that you put up your nose, and she'll take it to the whole damn load. She's just 17, but she's 1,000 years old. If you didn't know. When you put up your nose, whatever you do, she's so gold. She's only 17 years old. Wow! what? You know she's so damn hard to hold. Wow! Find out she's really 1,000 years old. Damn it, God. And she's gonna sold her soul to the girl. Damn it, crossroads. If the kind of devil that you know, then you don't. Wow! The kind of devil that you know, and then you don't. Wow! Kind of girl with the Malcolm in who screams out loud. That pig screams out loud. Do it in front of the crowd. You know that she's gonna get you now. But it's so damn proud. Screaming so loud. Do it right in front of the crowd. Do it right in front of the crowd. Since I was 17, but you know more now. She's 1,000 years old and you're just down, on the down. She's gonna do whatever she wants with you now, right now. Micromanage right in front of the crowd, going down. You're 17 but 60,000 years old and you know that now. I'm down in the damn band down. You're down, go down now. Hang tongue loud. She's the kind of girl that wants it now. Now, piercings healed downtown right now. She channeled 17, but she's 1,000-year-old queen. And vampire bleeds you right now, right now. Going down. You feel it when you feel the expansive sound. You feel it when you're down, so down. You said put the pink tongue right now, so I can scream out loud. Put the pink tongue in the deep pink right now, so I can believe myself with the scream in front of the crowd. Micro minute, 6-inch heels, and a debutante now. In a movie theater, a blanket, getting loud, 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 loud. Feeling underwater right now. It going down in the movie theater, the blanket in front of the crowd. Since healed like a minute tired and proud. She's gonna give it to you right now, right now. Micro minute, consider you're proud. Belly chain, ankle chain, nose ring right now. Tongue piercing, no it's in. With deep pink, and she grins. She just says, stick it in. Challenge 17, but she's 1,000-year-old queen right now. Challenge 17, and you know she's a queen right now. Everything's in and so loud right now. In the movie theater, you're getting close to climax now. You do it in front of the crowd. She's 1,000 years old queen right now. Challenge 17, oh now. But she's gonna get you proud. Scream out loud. In a mission scene, well, you know she's a debutante queen. And that in a mission scene, she can scream like a queen. But she channels 17, but she's 1,000-year-old queen. And she knows what she needs, and she gets pretty mean. If you don't give it to her in that scene, give it to a queen. you see? Bring to me or you pay your receipt. To him right now, you'll be so proud. Shit that's screaming out loud, cause she wants it now. It's a channel for 17, but she's a 1,000-year-old debutante queen. You want me to get mean, you gotta be deep tongue, pink tongue, sweet.
So we're back, and so that was an example of us playing live, and it's just what we had talked about before is our hardware workflow, utilizing the Zoom R20 to capture everything rather than the DAW, so that we can bring in our analog instruments. And in order to do that correctly, we had to get a DI box. So we got a Behringer new solution, which is their DI box that we talked about earlier. Allows us to take in quarter-inch signals that sometimes are headphone outputs, and convert them and alter them, and add a little gain to them, or take off the ground, or play with it, and so that you can actually bring it into a mixer like a R20, which has only mostly primarily XLR inputs. So you have to convert that quarter-inch signal that's a headphone output and allow it to come in. Now the other thing that we had in that performance was the use of the Roland JDXI and actually playing it through MIDI on a JUNO GI. So we got the full 61 key keyboard, connected, and then being able to control it like a module. And so what we did is added that ability to take in the actual module of the JDA08, which is fantastic because it's got all this old goodness from the 90s. In terms of the weird thing about the JD08 is that people understand the history of the JD8, the J800 was that, or the D800, is the fact that that synth was kind of like a throwback in an age of the DX7 and even the D50, where all the controls were buried in the little LCD screen, and basically people tended to just use patches. Like DX7s are famous for just using patches, and same thing with the D50. And not that you couldn't program it, but it was hard because you had to menu dive real deep to get to anything. So the JD08 is got all these panel controls that allow you to control tons of stuff and very little menu diving. Well, there's really no menu. There's not a lot of duplicate functions except for the envelopes. Are like you have one set of envelopes and you can hit a button and then it represents the other set. But on the original JD100, you had like all the envelopes and all the filters. Everything's like in front of you, and so that gives you a lot of control. And so when you're playing live, it's kind of like a Moog, because you can play with the filter live, and so like you can adjust it when you're playing, and get kind of like Hammond B3 kind of organ type of control, or even like mini Moog control over what you're playing. So when you're solo, you can play with the filter and the envelopes and effects and all kinds of things and trigger things. So that's what we did in that performance. So we hope you like everything here. Again, check out newsly.me. We use their coupon code GHOST2021. They actually have our podcast on Newsly. They promote it, and so you can check it out there. You can also go on Twitter and check us out, or on YouTube. We would encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube so that you get the latest interviews. On Friday at 9 p.m. New York time, we're going to interview Queen of the Static Opera, which is a pretty cool noise pop band out of Los Angeles, well, California, and we're excited. That's the next person group we're going to interview. And you can check out our YouTube channel, and we're also on Spotify podcast, so you can check out all of our podcast interviews that we had. We've been doing them since last year. We have a video podcast, and now that is available live on Twitter when we go live, and it's also on Twitch, it's on YouTube, it's on Facebook, and we are on Spotify podcast, as well as many audio podcast platforms, including Anchor FM and Apple. So we're on Apple Podcast if you want to listen. So thank you very much for listening and watching, and we'll talk to you all later.